Welcome back to A Chapter a Day.
Keeps the devil away.
I'm Pastor Pleck, that's Pastor Holland. We're talking Romans chapter 3. We're going to outline it, we're going to observe it, we're going to interpret it, we're going to apply it so that you can experience Jesus all day long. All right. Romans 3 verses 1 through 8, the advantage of the Jew and God's faithfulness. Paul asks what advantage the Jew has and what value circumcision has. And he answers much in every way. And we'll talk more about that. In verses 9 through 20, he communicates that everyone, Jew and Gentile, are all under sin and the consequences of that. In verses 21 through 26, the righteousness of God is achieved by faith. Apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been manifested, attested by the law and the prophets. Righteousness comes through faith in Jesus to all who believe. There is no distinction, for everybody has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And he really expresses the joy that we should be having in Jesus because of our salvation has been achieved by him. Then verses 27 through 31, boasting is excluded. Faith establishes the law. You cannot boast because what you've done, because only that which you've done good comes from faith in what Christ has done. Okay, let's get into some observations. What do you see here?
Okay, I like the way that he teaches this section. He does this a lot in his letters and throughout Romans, but I don't think we've pointed it out yet that it's like a question and answer kind of format. So he poses, these questions that people reading his letter might be thinking as he's starting to teach doctrine. And then he answers the questions. And it's a really cool rhetorical strategy. It's also a very helpful, so this is where catechesis comes from.
Right.
Like catechisms that are, instead of just teaching you, memorize these 10 truths, it's actually, here's a question and an answer. And that actually helps your brain kind of put things in the right category. Nice. And think through how the information you're memorizing is solving a problem, answering a question. And so it's a really effective way of teaching is this asking questions, then answering them.
Within that context, I love how Paul just systematically dismantles human self-righteousness. There's no way that you can look on your achievements and think, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he quotes, the Psalm here in verses 11 through 18 that is just none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God.
Their throats are empty graves.
Man. And so he's just laying down, here's the total depravity of the human race. We all sin. We are thoroughly corrupted by sin. So anyone who thinks that they're not that bad, Romans 3 is your chapter.
They have a rude awakening ahead of them.
All right.
Propitiation is a word used here. I would define that as something that satisfies the wrath of God. Would you?
Wrath-appeasing sacrifice.
Wrath-appeasing sacrifice. And so Jesus is presented as that wrath-appeasing sacrifice, the propitiation by his blood and the means of redemption through which somebody comes to faith in Jesus.
Yeah. And this is important in terms of understanding salvation and the cross. And there are some people who, deny that God poured out his wrath on Jesus. What kind of loving God would do that to his son? Divine child abuse. Yeah. And you just go, first of all, he wasn't a child. He's a grown man. He did it willingly. He went voluntarily to the cross of his own volition, right? But, some people who treat it as just he was an oppressed kind of victim. And in a very real sense, he was innocent. He was wrongly condemned and killed from a human standpoint, but from a divine standpoint.
And it was sovereign. God sovereignly allowed this sin to take place, which inevitably would take place.
Foreordained it, chose it.
Right. And knowing full well, ordained it, but people left to their own devices are going to try and kill the king of the universe.
Yeah. And that was going to be the way that salvation would come to the world, is through the voluntary death of Jesus on the cross as a wrath-appeasing sacrifice, a propitiation, so that God's wrath could be poured out and justice would be done.
Right.
But also sinners could be declared righteous and God's mercy. So you have justice and mercy at the cross of Jesus.
So he uses this kind of weird, in verse 26.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It was to show the righteous show his righteousness at the present time, so he might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
Let's get into that. So that means that he is righteous. He's completely just before God, innocent and perfect.
Well, so I think it's saying so that he might be just, meaning God might be just, in that he is punishing sin. He's not just letting sin go. So he's just. He's punishing sin, but he's also the justifier, the one who makes righteous the believer in Jesus. Because he's punishing sin in the person of Jesus,
right?
Which allows, the one who believes in Jesus to be saved and forgiven. So,
right. So yeah, it was to show that his righteousness at the present time, so he might be just, holy, even scales, and the justifier of the one person who has faith in what Jesus did for them.
Yeah, because this goes back to, remember when God revealed himself in Exodus, and he talks about I am who I am. And he says, he gives this description of himself, part of which is who will by no means clear the guilty.
Right.
But showing steadfast love to thousands, right? And so you have this idea of, well, how can there be a God who will by no means clear the guilty and show steadfast love to guilty sinners?
Right.
And so, there's this idea that, man, look at all these sinful people who, throughout history, where is the justice? And so Jesus on the cross, how did God, show mercy to someone like David who sinned and killed and was an adulterer? How is that fair? How is that just for a person like that, to receive God's blessing? Here's how. Nice. David had faith in God, and his sin was dealt with on the cross. So the whole Old Testament is looking forward to God's justice on the cross. After that, we look back to the cross and we see, man, there's justice and mercy in the cross of Jesus.
Which then gets into why we can't boast, because
exactly
your goodness, anything good that you do without the cross, although it is probably good and it probably helps humanity and it's wonderful, it ultimately doesn't save you because it doesn't come from faith.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into what are some characteristics of the nature of man.
None is righteous, no, not one.
Yeah. Unequivocally, none is righteous. How about in that vein, humans are incapable of true goodness apart from God. They can do good things. They can do great things. But true goodness, a purity of heart, only comes from God.
Yeah. Yeah. All human boasting is unfounded. Right? Verse 19, so that every mouth may be stopped. Right? You have no grounds to boast other than in the grace of God and his goodness to you. Every good thing you have is from him.
Yeah, and I think that's hard just for people because we celebrate awards and achievements and all that. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't honor others, but when you're tooting your own horn,
there has to be an acknowledgement of like, okay, I'm the fastest or I'm the smartest. Well, I'm the fastest with the legs God gave me, and so I give him the glory. I'm the smartest with the brain God gave me,
right.
And so I ultimately give my thanks to him, and all the glory goes to God.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, let's get into some character of God. How about God's faithfulness really shines in spite of human unfaithfulness?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you see the justice and mercy of God here.
Yeah.
He is just, he is merciful. He is just and the justifier. And the cross of Jesus is how that's mysteriously worked out. But I love that about God.
Yeah, and I think that impartiality of like, when he gifts somebody faith, he doesn't give them a free pass. He pays for their pass with the blood of his son.
Free to us, costly for Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, there are no free lunches. Someone's paying for it. And in this case, it is Jesus paying for your free lunch by his blood.
Yeah. God, part of his justice, the whole world may be held accountable to God. Verse 19. We will be accountable to God. And so, again, the importance of, if you haven't given your life to Jesus yet, give your life to Jesus.
Give your life to Jesus.
Skipping ahead to application.
Well, let's get into some application. Sin to avoid or confess, maybe a promise to claim, an example to follow, a command to obey, and a knowledge to believe. How about sin to avoid or confess, boasting in your own work? Maybe whether it's religious heritage or religious habits or moral performance. You stop relying on external things to show the evidence of, stop relying on that as your salvation. That is evidence of your salvation, but it isn't your salvation in and of itself.
Yeah. Knowledge to believe. Verse 23, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.
Nice.
This is the first verse of the Romans road, which, we can teach through as we talk through each of these chapters in Romans. But the first verse of the Romans road is this one, and it's the problem. It's the bad news before the good news. We have all sinned. Every single person, stands guilty before God.
Nice.
Knowledge to believe.
How about command to obey? Obey the call to believe in Jesus.
Yep.
Receive the free gift of justification by faith. Stop trying to earn righteousness through work. Live by faith. Because it's Jesus who justifies
Amen.
the ungodly.
Yeah. I mean, all the knowledge to believe and promises to claim. This is just so much gospel here of knowledge to believe God justifies by his grace, verse 24. God is a redeemer, verse 24. His grace is a gift, verse 24. He put forward Jesus as a propitiation, right? There's so many gospel promises and gospel knowledge to believe here.
I think maybe you are that bad. You are that bad, but God is that good.
Mm-hmm.
And so because he is that good, he sent his son Jesus to die in your place. And that is how you are justified, because you, O sinner, were crucified with Christ on that cross. He identifies with you, takes away your sin. And then he imputes to you, is the theological term, his righteousness on your behalf so that you might be the righteousness of God.
Amen.
Anything else there?
I think that's it.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on A Chapter a Day.